Welcome back to Unit 6. Today we're going to be continuing our translating that we did back in Unit 4, except today we're going to be translating linear equations. So let's go ahead and get started with that right now. Today we're going to be continuing the unit on functions. Today we're going to be talking about translating. Translating is where we take linear equations that are written as words and turning them into numbers and symbols and variables. Let's take a look at some important words to know. So around the outside of these boxes are words that mean addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. What I want you to do now is pause the video and see how many of the words you know and sort them into the boxes. When you're done figuring out as many words as you can, press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to sort all of the words into the boxes? Now, are all of the words that ever exist to mean addition, subtraction, multiplication, division? No, but these are most of the words that you're going to run into, but not all of the words that you're going to run into. So just keep that in mind as you work through problems. Let's take a look at example A and how we're going to translate words to numbers and variables. So example A says, using our vocabulary, how can we write the sentence as an equation? And the sentence reads, the output is 3 less than the input. So what I do when I'm translating is I write the different variables or numbers or symbols above the words before I attempt to put in an equation at the end. So for example, when I see the output, I know the output means y. I learned that in my vocabulary lesson. So since I know output means y, I'm going to put a y above output. The next thing here is, and very important, not a word that we discussed before, but anytime you see the word is, that means equals. So I'm going to put an equal sign above the word is. Then it says 3 less than. So I know 3 less than means subtraction, so I'm going to have minus 3. Then the input, and I know the input means x. Now, there's a very important phrase here, and that very important phrase is less than. The less than means that this negative 3 is going to move to the back of my equation. The less than means to move negative 3 to the back. So when I write my equation, I'm going to just bring down all the things that I have. Y equals x, and since I know the less than is going to cause the negative 3 to go to the back, I'm going to have x minus 3 at the back. So y equals x minus 3. Let's take a look at the next example. So example B says, write the sentence as an equation. The output is the sum of 12 times the input and 4. So again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to label everything with the things that I know. So I know output stands for y. And the last problem, I understand that is means equals, so I'm going to put an equal above there. All right. The sum of, so I know I'm going to be adding, so I'm going to put a plus sign since I know I'm going to be adding, of 12 times the input and 4. So I know 12 times, so I'm going to put 12 times with the little multiplication dot, the input, which is x, and 4, the number 4. So now what I really need to understand is, what is it talking about? It's talking about multiplying 12 times the input, so I know 12 times the input is going to be 12 times x, and it's talking about the sum of, so I know I'm going to be adding 4 to when I multiply 12 times the input. So my final equation is going to be y equals 12 times the input, or 12x, plus 4. Let's take a look at the next one. Example C says, write this sentence as an equation. The output is 9 more than the quotient of the input and 6. So again, I'm going to start by writing letters above the things that I understand. So I know the output is y, is equal, 9 more than, so I know I'm going to be adding 9 to whatever it is that I'm doing. The quotient, so I know that means division, of the input, x and 6. Now, do you have to use the method that I'm using by writing all of the letters above the things that you know? No, you don't have to, but it might be helpful to let you know what everything is to make sure that you have all of the parts written down when you go to write a sentence. So again, I have an important phrase here, the more than So I know the more than is going to cause that plus 9 to go to the back. But everything else should look exactly the same. So y is equals, I know the 9 more goes to the back, the quotient of the input and 6. Now it's very important when it talks about the quotient that it talks about the number that comes first goes on top or is the numerator. So in this case the x came first in my sentence and 6 came second. So x is going to be the numerator and 6 is going to be the denominator. The number that comes first after the word quotient is the numerator, and the number that comes second is the denominator. And notice I have my plus 9 at the back because my more than caused the 9 to go to the back. Let's look at the last example. Example D says, write the sentence as an equation. Again, the output is the product of 15 and the input. So again, I'm going to write things that I understand. Output equals y. Is means equals. The product, so I know I'm going to have multiplication of 15, so 15 times something, and the input, which is x. So this equation is pretty straightforward. Y equals 15 and the input, so 15 times x is going to be 15x. Let's take a look at the next thing. Now, this is the trickiest part about translating. So if you don't understand this slide, it might be a good idea to watch this part more than once. It asks, how are these two examples different? The first example says the output is 3 times the difference of the input and 9. The second choice says the output is the difference of 3 times the input and 9. They sound very similar. However, they are very, very different. The first problem talks about the output is 3 times the difference of. So when it's talking about multiplying by 3, it's talking about multiplying 3 times the difference of something. That something is the input and 9. The second problem talks about the output is the difference of 3 times the input. So it talks about multiplying 3 times the input immediately. It doesn't talk about multiplying something after something else has happened. So these two equations are actually very different. The first equation says y equals 3 times the difference of x and 9, or the input and 9. So it's multiplying 3 with a parentheses around the x minus 9. Because what is the 3 multiplying? It's multiplying the difference, so the difference subtraction, of the input and 9. The second problem says the output is the difference of 3 times the input. So 3 times the input is going to be 3x and 9. So in this case, I'm going to have y equals 3x minus 9. So what is the thing that's different? The change is what the 3 is multiplying. In the first one, it's multiplying the difference of the input and 9. So it's multiplying after something has already happened, the subtraction. The second one, it's multiplying 3 just straight times the input. It's not waiting for the difference to happen, it just does 3 times the input. That's the difference. It's very, very tricky, and it can be very, very confusing. So if you didn't understand, that's okay. Pause the video, rewind, and watch the slide again. If not, let's move on to some practice. How did you do? If you got them all right, excellent. If not, see where your mistakes crept in. Let's take a look at some other examples. So the last problem asks you to translate directly from words. These practice problems ask you to select the correct equation that is already given for you and match it to the translating words. Pause the video now, draw lines between the ones that you think match each other, then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? This is a very tricky topic. There's not a whole lot of math involved. It's knowing vocabulary, and it's knowing the order of words and numbers. If you're not sure how this plays out, go ahead and watch the video again. If not, you can move on to the translating dominoes. If you like this video, throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, throw us a sub.